Let's stand for the pledge. So that's that. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good evening, everybody. Board President, to advise members of the audience that they may address the board regarding agenda items after the superintendent's report. Only those members whose names and addresses are listed on the sign-in sheet available prior to the start of the meeting will be recognized during new business. The chairperson will limit discussions of any item by the public to 3 minutes in order for the board to expeditiously conduct its business. Mr. Dolan.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Zachary. My board report tonight, really, I'm going to turn the time over to Mr. Harrison, and I think, Steve, I'm going to stay here. I'll introduce you from here, okay? Yeah, no, you can get ready. It's that time of year again, folks. We're going to be discussing budget, but before I mention that, we have two really nice things coming up in the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow and Saturday, we have Disney High School at the middle school, the musical. And then at the weekend of the 25th, we have The Sound of Music at the high school. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't been to a play here, and I know it's been a little tough the last couple of years, but they do a wonderful job. You know, one of the real perks of working in school is you get to go in and see these kids rehearsing. They work so hard, and it is well worth the price of admission to go in and see that. So if if you're available, this weekend it's Disney High School Musical, and in another couple of weeks it's Sound of Music. On to the budget. Before I introduce Mr. Harrison, I'd like to commend Mr. Harrison and Mr. Manzo, Dr. Bells, and the administrative team. They've put in a lot of time scripting out a budget. But this is just the first of 3 presentations. In the presentation, which you'll be able to get online, I'd like to point you to page 5, which shows some history, I think, which is a history of fiscal responsibility. We are in a school district that says you have to go to tax cap every year, okay? But when you get to pages 10 and 11, where we talk about accomplishments/initiatives, I am very happy to say that the construction portion of the program, we've moved on. There's a tremendous amount of replenishment and addressing potential needs coming out of COVID. As you can see, we have, a lot of support for the kids in the area of literacy, math, ENL, and academics. We have some guidance support at the elementary level. There are a lot of good programs. We will be hosting, again, 2 more sessions, and we'll give people a chance to come in and ask some questions. But the purpose of the budget is to be flexible moving forward. Anybody that tells you today that they know definitively what the last 2 years has done to us, they can't possibly know. But I'm very confident that this budget's going to allow us to assess our kids and provide them with any sort of extra support that they need. It's also exciting as we start to look at new programs, at the secondary level, programs that, the one that jumps out is the data course at the high school, which is going to be new. We are adjusting some of our course offerings because, over the last couple of years, we've put in a tremendous amount of technology, and I give the staff give them a lot of credit for working and teaching kids in the medium that they learn best in. This budget, I think, is fiscally responsible, but it also is a good investment in good, sound, foundational educational programs. Again, we have a couple of months to go over all the details. Mr. Harrison's going to do a very nice job, in this first go-around today. One thing that I do want to address, or one last thing I should say that I want to address, when we started the bond, we created a capital reserve account. And if, for those that don't remember, we needed almost $20 million worth of roof work here in the district, and we didn't have a penny saved in 2015 to fix the roofs. The capital reserve account is an account where we have put money away each year. And this was in case the bond didn't pass, we would have been able to fix maybe one of the elementary roofs. But we are going to be putting up on the 17th the proposition to spend the money that we have in the capital reserve account. And I want to be crystal clear, that money is already there. We've put it aside. This was an account created in case the bond didn't pass, really. And to refresh your memory, we had a list of $80 million of structural capital needs in the district, and we did a bond for $59 million. So we want to continue to make sure that our infrastructure and our buildings are healthy, are safe and healthy for our children. This is not an additional tax. This is permission to spend money that's already in an account. And we are going to be hosting a number of, and the schedule will go out next week, like we did with the bond. We did tours of the building, but for the capital reserve, we're simply going to invite people to come in, and we're going to make sure that you get about 8 to 12 nights, come in and ask questions and have an informational discussion. But it's not to be confused with the budget, but it will be voted on the night of the budget. Is that correct, Mr. Harrison?
That's right.
Okay, so with that, again, this is please pay careful attention. If you're not here tonight, you can always email us questions. This budget is going to ensure that we can address the needs of our students, and if there are needs created from COVID, we will be prepared. And as we address those needs and we move forward and we, essentially catch up, this budget's also going to give us flexibility for enriching and exciting programs moving towards 2030 and beyond. So with that, why don't we give Mr. Harrison a nice round of applause as he gets started.
Thank you very much. Steph, you have a 3-minute timer set. I do apologize.
20 times. No problem.
Okay.
2 minutes.
So, building the budget is a very collaborative process. So to that end, I'd like to thank my staff, my colleagues, the superintendent, as well as the Board of Education, allowing me to present the budget tonight. So the agenda is similar to what we've seen in the past. We'll start with revenue, move on to the budget and the appropriations side of the budget, talk a little bit more about the capital reserve, and then just review the budget timeline. So this is the governor's proposal for state aid. If you subtract that universal pre-kindergarten, it's not part of the general fund budget. It's a 2.49% increase to $39.7 million. Roughly $1 million increase over the 21-22 school year. I'd just like to point out a couple of key items here. Foundation aid, where you hear about districts getting tens of millions of dollars. East Islip, we have already been funded fully for foundation aid, so we just get a 3% increase, which is the minimum that school districts in our particular situation get, roughly $820,000. The universal pre-kindergarten is staying flat at $634,500, which funds 117 full-time spots in our universal pre-K program. So again, that's not part of the general fund budget. It's managed separately. The part of budgeting that's difficult, or one of the parts that's difficult, is you see the building aid line, which seems to be going down to $161,000. However, the governor's budget does not contemplate the projects that are currently wrapping up and are going to be finished in the not too distant future. So really, when we look at our revenue side of the budget, and I'll point it out later, you'll see that our building aid line actually our state aid line is $2 million higher than you see as reported by the governor's budget. The next slide is a summary slide which goes through the tax cap calculation. Each district goes through the same calculation, comes up with a different number, but these are the factors that are impacting our final number, which is a 1.47% increase over the prior year's tax levy. So, going through very quickly, the formula starts with where we are currently with the tax levy, which is $72.9 million. We're provided a tax-based growth factor from New York State, which is an estimate of building that's going on throughout the boundaries of the East Islip School District, commercial and residential. So that factor is 1.0049. So what we're being told is that we can increase our tax levy by that amount, which is $357,000. Then we look at pilot payments. And pilot payments are for those properties that are not currently on the tax rolls, but that we would receive revenue in for. And the only pilot payment program we have right now came to an end in the 21-22 school year. However, we're being told by the town of Islip that that's going to be extended for at least 1 year. So that's why that's remaining as part of the revenue budget for next year. It is going down slightly by $65,000 because there was a secondary agreement that's not going to carry forward, but the pilot payments are expected to continue. The next section talks about the local share for capital projects, which is decreasing by $770,000 as compared to this school year. Finally, impacting the tax cap levy for next year is what's considered the 2% number. So CPI, I believe, was increasing at a rate of 4.1%, but since the cap is 2%, we can't go any higher than that. But that does add $1.4 million to the tax cap calculation. All this culminates in a potential tax levy of $64,640, an increase of $1,073,000 or 1.47% over the levy for this school year. I'd like to stress now, and I'll probably do it again, that's the amount that's in the current first draft of the budget. This is under discussion with the Board of Education. It's a starting point for us to have discussions. So this chart just shows you a historical representation of where the tax levy, allowable tax levy increases have been versus what we've done to support each year's budget. So going back to the 15-16 school year, you see we've had a couple of zeros along the way. We've been substantially below the allowable tax levy cap, and the past 2 years have had modest increases at the tax levy cap. Last year 1.5%, and this year proposed at 1.47%. I think you'll see later on in the slides that that's roughly 0.89% increase over a 5-year average. Okay, just another graph that shows you where the cap could have been in each of the years going back to 12-13. The period of time we were well below the cap from, again, 15-16 through 2021, and then being at the cap last year. I proposed being at the cap for next year. This chart shows if we went to the cap in each year, where we would be versus where we are now. So if we went out and, like I said, put out a tax levy that equaled the allowable tax levy limit, our taxes levy would be up to as high as $82.3 million. So you see, we're still substantially below that figure at $74 million going into next year's budget. So for the average homeowner with an average assessment of $40,000, with an increase of 1.4% on the levy, this would increase potentially taxes at $114 annually for the 22-23 school year. Now, there are a lot of things that are not under our control, so we don't like to talk about tax rates that much because there could be changes in assessed valuations both at the homeowner level as well as at the town level, where, as what happened last year, the homestead proportion part of the tax levy increased, and due to that, the non-homestead decreased, so the homestead took on a greater share of taxes for the 21-22 school year, but that's nothing within the control of the district. That's really one reason we don't talk tax rate here. We can control the levy, but we can't control the tax rate per se. So as I was indicating earlier, the $39 million in state aid, we're really expecting closer to $41.5 million, which is a 33% contribution to the total revenue of the district. The largest share comes from the property taxes at $74 million, which represents 59% of our revenue budget. The next largest item is the reserves and how much we're putting towards the budget next year, which is 5% at $5.7 million, which is a number much higher than we've seen in the past couple of years. So we are putting money back in support of the budget at a greater rate than we have for the past couple of years. Some smaller revenue items are the pilot payments, which we talked about at $548,000, and we do have roughly $2.2 million in other revenue, which includes our rental of property, our collection of tuition, and some smaller items, but rental and tuition make up a large part of that $2.2 million. So Mr. Dolan did go into some detail about our budget accomplishments and initiatives. They stretch across different areas, and you can see them here, so I'm not really going to repeat all the particulars. There are some health and safety issues which we'll continue to support as they become, as the district becomes aware of them. We're continuing to support technology. We're adding staff to that department so they can handle all the increased technology. We're also investing in an employee management system that will automate a lot of paper-based work that's being done currently. And we're also aware of cybersecurity issues, so we do have some initiatives being spearheaded there as well. Moving on to instructional support, in this year's budget, a lot of initiatives are being supported by the COVID-related grants. The district is continuing those programs into the next year, and it will constantly reassess whether or not they'll be part of future budgets, but we are maintaining that level of support going into the general fund budget for next year. In addition, we are introducing several new programs, a literacy program at the elementary school and a math program at the middle school. Finally, in terms of infrastructure, the expectation is to have our new maintenance barn up and running within the next year, so we're hiring staff to help us with things that we need in terms of a maintenance mechanic and ground support to help us with all our new fields. We do have an initiative to look at our windows, repair those that need repair, and also install roller blinds, as well as considering screens as well. Moving on to the budget drivers, salary and benefits. Overall salary and benefits are going up at 2.65%. If you look to the line directly above salary benefits, that's employee benefits, and the main driver there would be the increase in health insurance, which is at 11 or 12% premium increase year over year, which is roughly a $1.2 million increase. There were increases also in the TRS rates from 9.6% to roughly 10.5%. All contractual obligations have been advanced, so those that are on our salary schedules have been moved in the appropriate fashion. We do have retirees. Those retirees are being replaced at a lower salary. In addition, that non-instructional custodial line includes that new position as part of the increase of the 2.64% increase on that line, as well as all the staff positions we talked about on the prior initiative screen. So all that's been incorporated in this first draft of the budget. Okay, for the non-salary items, they're increasing at 4.22%. In those categories, we have continued support for equipment, both in the fitness room. For bleachers, we're looking at buying additional vehicles, a work van. Also support at the high school for pit fillers, as well as a new sound system. And I believe the Buildings and Grounds Department is also looking at purchasing a new mower. So all that is contributing to that $493,000 increase in the equipment line. Moving down to the textbook lines, you see there's a $284,000 increase. That's to support the programs I talked about previously, the literacy program at the elementary school, as well as the math programs at the high school. The large increase in the BOCES line, which is going up roughly $558,000, is related to tuition for special ed students attending that program. This is based upon an actual review of students who are expected to be in a program for next year, and also the additional staff person for technology is budgeted in that line. So overall, the budget is increasing by 3.07%, or $3.7 million, to a total of $124,755,712. So as in prior years, these screens show you how much each category takes up of the total budget. So salary and benefits is at 73% of the total spending for next year. In years past, that's been as high as 78 or 79%, but it's been fairly stable over the past couple of years at 73%. And the non-salary part of the budget is also fairly stable, with a few variations I've talked about: the increase in equipment, the increase in special education costs at BOCES, are the two leading increases that you'll see here. So as Mr. Dolan mentioned, we do have a proposition number 2 on the ballot for next year for a capital reserve. The capital reserve was approved by the voters on May 17, 2016. We currently have a balance of $5.9 million in that reserve. We have made appropriations in the past, so this is what's in there currently. And the capital reserve requires not only voter approval to establish and fund, but it also requires approval to spend. And that's what we're going to be asking the voters for on May 17th. The projects included are the district-wide electrical upgrades, which are being done to support air conditioners in their classrooms. We do have additional bathroom renovations needed across the district. Consideration for the creation of a bus loop at the high school, as well as additional renovation of the theater and music areas at the high school. And finally, there are some paving repairs left to be done at various locations throughout the district, including the RCK playground. So we're continuing to build on this chart. We see the proposed tax levy of $74 million, which is a 1.47% increase. If you do a 5-year average, including that 1.47, we're still at below 1% at 0.89%. And again, we have the total budget amount as well as the amount funded by appropriated fund balance of 5.7, which you see we haven't been at that level since the 1920 school year. So finally, we'll have our next budget presentation on March 31st, followed by an April 14th presentation, which also will serve as our budget adoption date, and then a May 3rd budget hearing, culminating in the budget vote and election May 17th. So at this time, I'd like to open up for questions from the Board of Education and Administration.
First, thank you, Steve. I know you, your staff, you spend a lot of time putting this together, so thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
For your work. 2 questions. One is, the proposed tax levy would be around $74 million, correct?
Correct.
And I see here from your chart, if we went to the cap every year, we could be at 82.
Correct.
So it's around $8 million, so therefore, if we had gone to the cap every year, property taxes would be over 10% higher than they are now. Is that accurate?
Yes.
The other thing is, you said the health insurance is going up tremendously.
Yes.
About one point.
In total, it's like $1.5 million. There are two components there. The largest component is the increase that you're alluding to, which is 11 or 12% on current premiums. And also, as people retire and you bring new staff in, you're adding actually people to your health insurance rolls. So both of those numbers have been included in that increase, but primarily it's the increase in health insurance premiums.
And the 1.47% increase is just over $1 million?
Yes.
So roughly, the health insurance is going up more than what we're asking for a tax increase, so everything else is basically staying the same or lower, correct?
You can look at it that way, sure. Yep.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks again, Steve. Just, can you go to, I guess it's page 8, the sample assessment? Can you just briefly kind of tell us what that shows and what you tried to do there? I mean, I think this is the most, I find it an easier way of understanding what's gone on historically.
Sure. Well, the tax rate is applied to an assessed value, and I'm not quite sure if it's still the same average assessment, but to keep apples to apples, we use $40,000. That's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a $500,000 to $600,000 house in the community. So what we're trying to show there is applying the tax rate to the assessed value. We're within a couple $100 of where we started this thing back in the 13-14 school year. So we've made an effort, and it shows here in the numbers, to keep the school portion of the tax levy consistent and not have wild fluctuations from one year to the next. So if things hold to where they are currently, the average homeowner would expect a $114 increase as compared to the prior year.
And there have been years here where there have been decreases then?
Sure.
The ones in the parentheses there, right?
Right. There have been decreases. You know, we didn't go out with decreases on the tax levy. Those years when
Right.
the levy was very low, perhaps at 0%, but other factors played in, like assessed valuation. So the homeowners did experience a decrease, all other things being equal to their tax bill.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Steve, I mean, is it safe to say that when you look at this over the last 8 years, we've used approximately 35.8% of the allowable cap, which I believe is the lowest of any school district on Long Island. Is it pretty safe to say that?
Yeah, I would say so. I know most of my colleagues in their districts, when we report to each other, they're more than likely going to be at the cap year after year.
You know, and we have gadflies in the community which help, and on the board who, you know, they you know, kind of keep us sharp. A couple of things that I also want to point out. You mentioned the maintenance mechanic. Who fixes our vehicles now?
Most often they're sent out to third-party vendors,
And,
contractors.
You know, you won't take credit, but I know you've looked at it. If it would, when we have the new bond, which is built through the bond, will this actually save us money because we now have someone working on site doing the work and can do other things when the vehicles are running?
Sure, and not to mention the lost time in having to transport vehicles to whatever vendor we're using. Time and money.
And you pointed out it wouldn't have made sense to have this person if he didn't have a barn to work in, correct?
Correct.
Yes, and we had a barn over there for 20 years that was obsolete and uninhabitable. You know, one of the things also looking, you know, people are probably curious, we say new course offerings at the high school, but Mr. Manzo, are you done with the scheduling process at the high school yet?
No.
But what got me the most excited today, do you remember? What course at the high school?
The new data science course is going to be offered at the high school.
How many kids have signed up already?
I believe thus far we have about 60.
60 kids signing up for data science. You know, we have, you know, our media center, WFTK. You know, the course offerings, it's safe to say, are evolving, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Zachary just said it. Our health insurance outstrips what we're bringing in with this, right? Correct, Mr. Harrison? You know, I think if you look at our history here, and some people might say if we had done a little more in years past, we might not have to do what we're doing this year, correct? Okay. But, you know, we're trying to be fiscally responsible, and provide the best possible programs. And also, some of these things that we've added in, because of COVID and, the American Rescue Plan, nobody's holding a gun to our head. As time moves on and our staff, if, we may be able to reposition them. If these programs, some of these programs don't have to be there forever. We just have to make sure that our kids are healthy, both socially, emotionally, and academically, and we may be able to reposition some of these assets, correct, as we see some turnover. So this budget, we believe I'm just so excited we're not talking about roofs anymore. I'm so excited we're not talking about building, other than what we're here for. That is what's good for kids. But it also, is it safe to say that this budget will also allow us flexibility in the future to be able to reposition assets if need be?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. You worked very hard, and you won't take any credit. And again, also thank you to Paul and Lisa and to all the administrators and teachers for their input.
Can you just explain again with the homestead? Because I know last year the tax levy was 1.5, but the actual increase in the tax rate was 2.31. And you said that has something to do with homestead. Could you explain that?
There are two tax bases in the East Islip community. One is homestead and one is non-homestead. And there's proportions to each. And last year, the proportion of the tax, well, this year, the proportion of the taxes shifted more towards the homestead versus the non-homestead. So that's what contributes. They get a higher share of the taxes than they had in the past, and that represents why the increase of 2.3%.
Okay, when do you find out about what that would be?
We don't know that during the budget process.
Oh.
So we don't know until August or September, after the budget has already been approved and done. So we don't do anything other than keep that information the same as it was the prior year, because we don't have any better information. And traditionally, schools don't get into the realm of trying to forecast what the tax rates are. You're never going to be right. So the tack that I've taken, as well as a lot of my colleagues have, is to keep the assessed valuations and the proportions the same as they were in the prior cycle, so that you can at least have some sort of comparison.
Okay, thank you, and thanks again for doing that.
Steve, I hate to do this to you, but I do want to clear something up. You mentioned BOCES, and BOCES is our partner, and BOCES does help with some of our neediest children and also provides opportunities. But do you remember off the top of your head what the BOCES increase was this year?
Yeah, I don't. I would fathom to say it was at least several percentage points. I just, I don't know offhand.
But I know it was higher than the 1.4.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Yes. It was probably in the 3% range.
It was, and it was higher than normal. But I want to, make this comment because BOCES has been talked about. We brought BOCES back a couple of years ago, and we are in discussions now. Is it worthwhile or doable to provide 2 years of BOCES as opposed to, we brought it back 1 year at a time? We're not committing one way or the other right now, but what you said about BOCES and their increase is all included in this. And any conversations we've had about, so it's not like, we're not trying to hide anything, and we may be able to provide even more opportunities for our students within the confines of this spending plan. So, I didn't want anybody to, we are ongoing, BOCES was gone, it came back, and we are listening and speaking with them about more possibilities, because what we want to do is provide, as many opportunities for our kids as possible, and I didn't want anybody to misread that. And I also just want to remind everybody, we will be hosting 8 to 10 nights where people can come in and talk to us about the capital reserve. We'll answer any question you want, but ostensibly it'll be for the capital reserve, just like we did with the bond. But instead of doing tours, we'll stay in the same room, because we want people to be able to come in, ask questions. But again, Steve, just gives me an opportunity to say thanks again.
You're welcome.
All right. That's it, Mr. Zachary, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. comments on agenda items only. Okay. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the resignations, terminations, leaves of absence, position abolitions, employment appointments, tenure appointments, and salary changes in accordance with applicable provisions of education law and civil service law as cited in the certified personnel attachments. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the resignations, terminations, leaves of absence, position abolitions, employment appointments, tenure appointments, and salary changes in accordance with the applicable provisions of education law and civil service law as cited in the non-certified personnel attachments. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda. Be resolved that that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, recommends the Board of Education approves the consent agenda items 9.1 through 9.17 in accordance with the action presented for each item. Get a motion?
Motion.
One thing, is 9.18 included in that, or no?
Well, it's the appropriation changes, so we could vote on that, and if we have any
Okay.
questions for Mr.
I
Harrison.
saw it said consent next to it.
I know. Anybody want anything pulled out of the consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
If you like.
All right, folks, we just want to point out something about next year's calendar. We made an adjustment. Thursday, April 6th is being added to the spring recess, but Friday, December 23rd, we will be in school. So it's been adopted, so we'll make sure we send that out in a Parent Square message. But again, we are adding Thursday, April 6th to the spring recess, and we are putting Friday, December 23rd back into the calendar.
Nine point 18, be resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the attached list of appropriation changes for the 21-22 school years. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
My apologies, but it has to be read. I'll see if I can beat Mr. Harrison's time here on reading this, but just stick with me, please. Whereas the Board of Education of the East Islip Union Free School District deserves to embark upon the following capital improvement projects: electrical panel upgrades and power, window air conditioners in the East Islip Middle School, Timber Point Elementary School, Connecticut Elementary School, JFK, RCK, and the East Islip High School. Toilet upgrades at the East Islip Middle School, Timber Point, Connecticut, JFK, RCK, East Islip High School, and the district office and the Early Childhood Center. Bus loop and parking lot, music suite renovations, and a new cooling system for fitness rooms at East Islip High School, paving, concrete, curbs, sidewalk repairs at East Islip Middle School, Timber Point Elementary School, East Islip High School, and district office and Early Childhood Center. Playground paving at the Route C Kinney Elementary School, tennis court upgrade, and library HVAC upgrades at the East Islip Middle School. Maintenance garage upgrades at JFK Elementary School, and whereas said projects are subject to classification under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Whereas maintenance and repair involving no substantial changes in an existing structural facility is classified as a Type 2 action under the current Department of Environmental Conservation SEQR regulations. Whereas replacement, rehabilitation, and reconstruction of a structure or facility in kind on the same site, including upgrading buildings to meet building or fire codes, unless such action meets or exceeds any of the thresholds in section 617.4, are classified as Type 2 actions under the current Department of Environmental Conservation SEQR regulations. Follow me? Whereas the SEQR regulations declare Type 2 actions to be actions that have no significant impact on the environment and require no further review under SEQRA. And whereas the Board of Education of the East Islip Union Free School District, as the only involved agency, has examined all information related to the projects and it has determined that such projects are classified as Type 2 actions pursuant to Section 6.175C of the Seaport regulations. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby declares itself lead agency in connection with the requirements of Seaport, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby declares that the projects set forth above are Type 2 actions that require no further review under Seaport. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby shall forward an official copy of this resolution to the New York State Education Department, together with a copy of the correspondence from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation in connection with its request for approval of the listed projects from the New York State Education Department. Want me to read it again? You got it? What'd you say?
Sounds like one of my stories.
I get a motion.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. I guess this is all the capital improvement requests. Is that what this is discussing?
That's correct. It's a review undertaken by our architects to make sure that these improvements don't impact the environment negatively and that we can proceed with the proposed projects.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
9.20. Be resolved that the Board of Education shall present to the qualified voters of the East Islip Union Free School District at the annual meeting to be held on May 17th, 2022, the following proposition in substantially the same following form. Proposition 2. Shall the Board of Education of the East Islip Union Free School District be authorized to expend $5,951,633 from the 2015-16 Capital Reserve Fund established on May 17, 2016 for the purpose of performing the following projects: electrical panel upgrades and power to support air conditioners at East Islip Middle School, Tinker Point Elementary School, Connecticut Elementary School, JFK, Route C. Kenny, East Islip High School, toilet upgrades at the East Islip Middle School, Timber Point Elementary School, Connecticut Elementary School, JFK, RCK, East Islip High School, District Office and Early Childhood Center. High school bus loop and parking lot, high school theater, music suite and renovations, district-wide paving, concrete curbs and sidewalk replacement at the East Islip Middle School, Tinker Point Elementary, RCK, East Islip High School, District Office and Early Childhood Center, playground paving at Route C. Kenny Elementary School, all the foregoing to include all labor, materials, equipment, apparatus, and incidental costs related thereto. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
And as Mr. Dolan said, we'll have plenty of public meetings on that as to exactly what the board is requesting from the capital reserve and the projects. Old business. Any old business?
I got nothing to say.
You got nothing to say?
Wait, what?
Nothing to say.
It's like the old days up here, a little, perspective. We'll get to, did you sign in?
Yeah.
We'll get to you in a second.
Yeah, I
Any old business for the board? Wow, okay. Any new business? New business. I'd like to congratulate the kids who went to the all-district elementary concert last night, and the elementary kids and fifth graders, mentors, did an amazing job. It was in the high school gymnasium due to the plays coming up in the middle school and high school. And I'd like to congratulate our staff, our teachers. Who, it was great. It was great to see the kids performing. It was great to see them inside. I know we've held it outside when we could during COVID, and just to see the kids and the staff perform like that, it was amazing. So congratulations to our band, orchestra, chorus teachers that got the kids performing last night, and what an amazing job by our kids. So any other new business?
would just like to say tomorrow night is FTK's gala, and we're happy to have them back running because they do a tremendous amount for the kids in the district, and it's always a successful event for us, the community. So thank you, and I hope you guys are very successful tomorrow night.
FTK is just one of the gems that we have here in the district, and I'd be telling everybody to come out and support FTK and go, but unfortunately fortunately it has sold out. So the community has always shown tremendous support for FTK and the hard work that they do. And it's great to see. They have amazing baskets. It's a great night, so I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. So thank you, FTK, for putting that together. Anything else?
Hey, Chris? Chris?
Yes.
To sort of dovetail it all together, I mean, things are coming back. I mean, spring is right around the corner. Last night's concert was wonderful, but I think it shows the combination between faculty and staff, parents and students. We have two wonderful plays that I talked about at the beginning, this weekend and then the weekend of the 25th at the high school. But the fact that our custodial staff and our maintenance staff was able to set up and break down, and we didn't have a venue to do a concert that we didn't know if we were going to be able to do 6 weeks ago, and we found a way to make it happen. And I think that's the resiliency. And look, it's been, I don't even want to say the word, it's been a long couple of years, but we had our first meeting of the Long Range Planning Committee. And I can't even believe I'm saying this, because it seems like only yesterday it was 2015, and we were saying, what do we want it to look like in 2020? What do we want it to look like in 2025? And we actually had to start the Long Range Planning Committee sooner. And look, we made the best of a terrible situation, but now we were sitting in a room with a group of parents talking, and parents, administrators, teachers, talking about what do we want this place to look like in 2027, 2032. And it was so refreshing. And honestly, we didn't talk about the roofs once. It was heavily tilted towards what are the skill sets are our children going to need, because our children are going to be working in 2050, 2060, 2070, 2080. It's conceivable that we have kindergartners today that are going to come close to working in the 22nd century. And what skill sets are they going to need? And what's the proper way to invest? And I think, Mr. Harrison's budget presentation showed, I think we're investing wisely in our future. And, the Long Range Planning Committee, I think, is going to be very exciting in terms of helping to script out a vision for where we want to be. And, so I thought we should give them a shout out.
Okay, can people go online and buy tickets for that middle school play this weekend?
Yes, I apologize, and the high school also.
And our high school one, go on
Yes,
and buy that.
I apologize. We will, we'll send out another parent square. Well, I'm being real generous. Mrs. Mann will probably send it out after. I won't send it out, but Joe, can we just remind the people, because it's another beautiful way to spend a night with, or an afternoon with your significant other or family. You don't have to go to Broadway to see a good production.
I heard the high school set is amazing. It's beautiful.
Oh,
So
you got-
can't wait
oh.
to see the kids every year. Like I said, it's
Yep.
amazing how talented the kids are every year. So come out and support the kids and the plays. You'll have a great time. Okay, any other new business?
Yeah,
Stephanie?
Kenneth Lafayette to speak? Sure.
Mr. Harris, if you take the total bottom line of the budget and divide it by how many students that we have, can you tell us how much per student we are spending, just to do an average that way? Are you able to supply that figure at all?
Yeah, I can report on that at the next Board of Ed meeting if you'd like.
All right, I would appreciate if you would take it one step further and use your school tax rate sample assessment and give us how much we spent per student for the last 10 years. 2021 and below is in the record books, so it shouldn't be hard. I can understand these coming years, but I request to see how much we spend per student at the next meeting in old business. You brought up the fact that you're projecting down to 2032. So it's easy to say that in 2032, using our 2% increase, whether we need it or not, but our budget will be $140 million 10 years from now, easily, using your 2% projections. So Do we need to spend $15 million over the next 10 years, or where can we save money? I don't know. I'm putting the question to you. You know, just because we're entitled to it, doesn't mean we have to use it. And has everybody, you know, we had students that didn't go to school. I got a reduction in my car insurance because I wasn't driving. Did anybody ask the school buses and so forth there, hey, we didn't use a lot of your equipment in that. We were your best customer. Did you ask for any money back?
We're constantly in touch with our vendors as far as for reductions and those things. We did have certain contractual obligations during COVID that we had to meet legally.
I know
We
that,
have
I
obligations we
understand
have to, and in order to make sure we had a bus, when if, remember back in March of 2020, we thought we were coming back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So we had to make sure, to keep up with our payments, to make sure we had a bus if we came back sooner. So those were all things that we negotiated very, very much so
And it could
during
be
COVID.
renegotiated
Yes, we did.
for the following years, a good customer. Well, anyhow, I'll await your answer on those figures.
And so what was your,
Thank
what
you,
was,
sir.
what was your name again?
Kenneth Lothier.
Lokier? Ms. Lokier. I might have confused you. When I was talking about the Long Range Planning Committee telescoping out to 2032, the 2%, what we did say earlier was, over the last 9 years or 8 years, we've used 35% of the allowable cap. Most districts use 90 to 98%. We are, I believe, the lowest on that. In other words, that 2% that you're talking about, if we continue with what we're doing now, we would use approximately 36% of that,
Well,
so it would
your
be
figure
much
is,
lower.
What, $1.4 million roughly going up over last year's budget? Round figure, roughly,
No, it was,
Just over $1 million.
it was $1,035,000.
$1,035,000, all right, so even then, multiply it times 10. And that's not increasing what we're spending in oil and everything else.
But as I said to Mr. Harrison when he gave his our health insurance alone is going up well over that.
Yes.
So basically, everything else other than the health insurance is the same.
And I made my living in the automotive business, and you're talking about hiring someone to do maintenance here, which I can see possibly is a good idea, but what is this man gonna do? Is it just going to be general maintenance? Because if you have a fleet of Fords and nothing else, yeah, you can fix one product, but when you have several products out there, you cannot do it. The manufacturer has a database so big that can fix things so fast people don't realize it there. So I'd be curious to see, what is this man going to do for the salary? Is he coming under the umbrella of the teachers union and he gets benefits and retirements and all the other things? So how is his salary going to be determined and what benefits does he receive?
Well, it won't fall under the teachers union, but it could be a man or a woman. UPSU.
Yes.
And he most certainly has to be a certified technician if you're hiring anyone. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Right, Dima?
I'm Frank Dima. I didn't write anything today, but I'm glad you spoke about last night's concert, because my daughter was supposed to be in that concert 2 years ago, and the day before the concert was the day they closed the school. So it was nice to see it yesterday. She was asked to be a mentor for the clarinets, and she was there, and it was a great evening. And I look forward to the play tomorrow and in a couple of weeks from the high school. The reason I'm speaking tonight is because, on that note, I would like to know why East Islip High School doesn't have a marching band. This is going to be my new thing. There's a budget that you have with millions of dollars, you know, the numbers, you know, go in and out of my head sometimes, but it's a lot of money. And I'm sure, I don't know how much, I don't know what's involved, I'll plead ignorance, you know, I have no problem saying that. I don't know what's involved in terms of uniforms, I don't know what's involved in terms of teachers, the salaries, you know, whatnot, what it might be. But I always believe that a marching band is an ambassador for the school. Because other than a debate team, maybe a chess, I won't even say a chess club, because it's one-on-one. But a debate team and a marching band. Those are the only things I can think of that can actually go to competitions, to other places. Our football team plays the same 8 or 9 schools. They do go to, you know, championship games and whatnot. But a marching band's an ambassador. There's competitions all around the country. My nephew was in a marching band down in North Carolina. They have marching band competitions all the time, and they do very well. And the kids have a lot of fun doing it. Now, I know we have the talent to have a marching band. I've seen the concerts in the high school. I've seen the concerts in the junior high. When I was in school, I was in West Islip, very big rivals back then, not so much today, but this is going back to 1984, and I was in the marching band, and we actually went up to the Boston Marathon Parade and represented, you know, the West Islip Lions up in Boston. I cannot think of another type of thing that a high school can have to promote the town in school, school pride. So my question really is, how come we don't have a marching band, and how much would something like this even cost? Is there anything in the budget that can be trimmed? I'm sure we pay lawyers, and no offense, accountants, much more than we pay a teacher to do a marching band.
Mr. Dolan will answer that. I can tell you, it's not money. So it's not money. No one's come to us asking to start it, and we've said no, so that's not it. But after you, sir.
Listen, anything for the kids we want. And this is a great question, but you actually answered it within what you just said.
I did?
Yeah. And we do have, I'm going to tell you right now,
No, please,
I'm very
once
proud of
again.
this. You know, people always, football is played when nobody else plays. They get way too much attention. I love you guys, I love the football team, but you guys get way too much attention. And you can quote me on that. But our mock trial team has won more state championships than the football team. Now, we have a wonderful mock trial team.
Well, that's my main debate team. Maybe
Yeah,
that's what
okay,
I'm referring to.
but no, what I'm saying, when you talked about how we used to be rivals with West Islip, today in our group, you know, the superintendents, we talk. We have a text group. And we ask each other questions. What do you do? What do you do? What do you have? What do you have? And we asked a question, and West Islip answered they had 10, and we have 6 of something. You know, it had to do with the programmatical thing. Because what's happened is our enrollment has gone down a lot faster than West Islip's. Now, we do have a wonderful band, we have a wonderful music program, and look, we'll get more details, and they are going to be, I believe they're marching in the Memorial Day Parade. And to do a marching band competition, it's a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of commitment from the kids. And our numbers, when you were in high school, you're younger than me, but I'm going to go out on a
I was
limb.
84.
What?
I'm 56, proud to be 56.
You look a lot better than me. But
Yeah, you're a lot younger.
I was born in, it's 1850. You talking 19 or 18? Because mine was 1856. But, you know, we say this, at the turn of the century, we had almost 6,000 kids in the district. That high school was, you know, just under 1,900, I believe. We're down to 1,100. And so, you know, like I said, I've marched in the Memorial Day Parade with the band, or, you know, band. I was with the chamber and the band was, you know, this year, a couple of weeks ago, we didn't know what we were going to be able to do. You know, but I believe we've been invited to march in the Memorial Day Parade, which is wonderful. But to have the competition team, you know, I remember last year it was beautiful, sitting outside watching a concert, and 2 of our flutists came running in their softball uniforms, and you could tell both of them had slid because they were covered in dirt, and they sat front row playing the flute in their softball uniform because they couldn't miss the concert and they didn't want to miss their game. And so, you know, as we said before, East Islip is a place where you roll up your sleeves and get it done. If you have a play set up in the middle school and a play set up in the high school auditorium, well, darn it, let's have that concert in the auditorium, and we'll move all the equipment so the gym classes can play the next day. Yeah, we have a music program that's second to none. I wish we still had 1,800 kids in the high school.
Well, I'm referring, maybe I should have said this, I should have prepared this more. I just thought about it today at the time. But more like for the football games. So I went to the Plainview East Islip.
No, they're there.
Hofstra.
Frank,
No offense to
they're
Plainview,
there.
but
No, they're at the games all the time. I will tell you right now.
not on the field.
No.
They're in the pep band, in
Well, no,
the
we have the kick line.
auditorium, in the
The kick
auditorium,
line.
in the audience. I'm talking about during halftime, having a marching band, a kick line. I don't know, you know, I think it's a big thing. I saw Plain Edge, was it Plain Edge we played at Hofstra? No offense to that team, that marching band team ain't that good. You know, I mean, hopefully I can see it on YouTube, but I mean, compared
Frank,
to,
we're on
you
video,
know.
we're on video, you're gonna get me
I mean,
killed.
they're probably great, but that night they were off, you know, so. But, and by the way, Mr. Dolan, thanks a lot. I saw you last week. I was driving by, and you were picking up garbage
Don't tell my wife.
next to the thing. It's pretty impressive. I didn't expect the superintendent to do it.
Thank you, Frank.
But thanks for your time.
You're picking up garbage? You see,
Andrea,
most of
back
us
to you.
have to actually do something.
Before I start, can you talk to the people and talk
Rebecca, can you get the mics this way the people at home can hear you as well?
3 minutes goes by really fast. The American Rescue Plan, according to Phil Boyle's office, East Islip is getting $5.4 million, or has gotten, correct? Yes.
How much did we get?
Yes.
Around there?
Yes. Okay, where is that accounted for in these numbers? And how many people were hired? It was mostly hires, that's what the money was for, right? The social workers and all kinds of.
All of that. The reading program, I believe, is supported by that number. The social workers, guidance counselors.
Okay, all right.
There's a lot of things in the budget that were added.
Oh, so it's
specifically
all,
for those things
it's not
COVID-related.
separated out, it's all in there now.
I believe so.
Now, what happens when 5.4 million doesn't arrive next year? Does the budget come down by 5.4 million?
There are several.
Do those people go work somewhere else?
He's gonna answer you.
There are several arms to that money we're talking about, and you're seeing it in the budget this year. I'm sorry, for 22-23. As I mentioned during the presentation, there are a number of staff hired this year with that support that we're talking about. The district has made a decision going into next year to maintain that level of support in the general fund budget
Okay,
and continue to reassess for future years. But in terms of year 2, those monies are being supported, those staff positions are being supported by the general fund.
so the money was already there.
The money was there for this year to support a certain number of staff positions. And next year, the budget is picking up those staff positions because the money's not going to be repetitive.
Okay, now, there's been some talk about Northwell coming into some school districts. Are we getting Northwell, yes or no? Because I want to talk about something else, really. Somebody asked me to ask this.
Northwell is that trainer, but
Excuse me?
you have to be more specific. We use Northwell for athletic training.
I can't understand what you're saying.
In what capacity do you think they'd be coming in? To do what?
People from Northwell providing the services,
What services?
counseling, et cetera,
I haven't heard.
social
anything about
engineering,
that.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know anything about that.
We contract with
It's
Northwell.
connected to the COVID and American Rescue Fund. The fund that doesn't allow you to lower taxes with any of the $5.4 million, by the
I'm
way.
sorry, we don't know what you're talking about.
And Mrs. Vecchio, what we said before also was that we will evaluate year to year what we need, and we have flexibility moving forward. If students are doing well and we are successful, programs will phase out. So, but we do engage Northwell for our athletic trainer. You have to have an athletic trainer on site for the after-school sports. So that's the only contract we have with Northwell. Oh, and a school doctor too also.
Okay.
But not, it's not COVID related.
All right, well, as far as the per pupil cost is $36,000 per pupil. And that's without some of these extra things that are going to be happening, I guess. And now that the number is up by 3%, which is amazing that it could have gone up, It's got to be a little bit higher than that. And how many students are we down from last year? I guess we don't know. Do we know?
I'll pull out the latest report and I'll call you tomorrow.
Oh, you don't know?
Off the top of my head, no. I'm trying to remember now. I just got the report March 1st. It's not as sharp a decrease as it had been. It's starting to level off. But we're down about 40 from this time last year, but I'll...
40?
Well, if you want to wait, I'll go upstairs after the meeting and
Yeah,
get the
I don't
paper and
know.
bring it
Okay,
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring it
Because
down.
I'd like to figure out what the per pupil cost is for the taxpayers, because, you know, every dollar is taxpayer
Mr.
dollars.
Harrison promised that other gentleman he would have it next meeting.
11 students.
Mrs. Vecchio, we're down 11 students from last year. Mr. Manzo just pulled it out. I was wrong, sorry.
All right, I'll save it for some time when maybe I can talk for a couple of minutes, but,
What do you got? What do you want to talk about?
about everything, about the fact that the taxpayers just don't matter in this school district. And there's no concern, there's no thought that with the schools closed, that you couldn't save us a penny at all, and you're raising the budget while we're losing students every single year, and yet the benefits and the salaries go up by, let's see, from 88.7 to 91.1. That's a pretty big increase. Did we lose any people? We must have hired more people. And this American Rescue Plan, God knows how many more people will be hired and stay on and become members of the teachers union, because all our staff are members now, correct? One thing I would like to ask is what's the value, the dollar value for a family coverage in East Islip School District for a teacher or another member of the Teachers Welfare Fund?
Well,
A teachers union, I should say. That's another crazy thing.
It's not specifically teachers, any staff that's eligible for health insurance. It's not specific to teachers, don't have their own health insurance.
No, there's, like, it
But
used to be
it costs
30,000,
the
what
same.
is it
It's
now?
around
It went up,
33,
it's more
I
than
believe.
30,000.
33.
How much?
33,000 is the total.
33,000.
Is
So
a family plan.
a beginning teacher, if he has a family or she has a family, they're entitled to $33,000
No,
worth
they
of
pay a
medical
portion of
coverage.
their medical.
That's pretty nice. Not the way it is out in the
They
real
pay a
world.
good portion of their medical, almost equivalent to anybody else in school
Excuse
districts on
me?
Long Island.
Excuse me?
They pay a portion of that. It's not
No, I know,
all
it was
33,000. They pay
19%, I
towards
don't
it.
know if it's much more now, but, yeah, no, I know that, yeah. You ran and got elected to lower a budget,
Three
lower the
times.
budget. You got elected because you were on the budget committee for 2 years,
I was.
and you said we could have cut $2 million. That's how you came in 2014. And this is, you know, disappointment after disappointment, because people come, and then what happens is it always costs the taxpayers.
We've made reductions, significant reductions, and actually your taxes up until last year were basically the same as they were in 2013, 2014. But you
The
really don't want to
budget is $2
recognize that, don't you,
million
Ms. Becker?
higher than it was last year.
No matter what I
Come
tell
on.
you just don't, you can't comprehend it. But
Okay.
the tax, you know, like I said, they were lower over a 7-year period than they were, but you don't want to believe it, even though I've shown you my taxes myself. But
The
I can't help
spending
you.
didn't go down, though. The spending keeps going higher
Spending
and
didn't
higher
go
and
down, but your
higher.
taxes did. You're welcome.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right. Okay.
I can't hear.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming down. Again, the middle school play this weekend. Get your tickets for the high school play coming up. The next Board of Education regular business meeting will be held on Thursday, March 31st, 2022 at 8 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Have a good night. Thank you.